oh say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight last gleaming?
Well, we are definitely in Puerto Rico. And we thank Domingo for our warm welcome last evening and the follow-up this morning.
And now, I have the honor and the privilege to introduce someone who I have listened to on the radio and enjoyed a lot, watched on PBS and enjoyed a lot. And so we have with us Mr. Tavis Smiley.
But I think that the crisis that you find yourselves in, the war that you find yourselves in, I believe the stakes are so high right now. If we are going to win this fight, we are going to have leaders, administrators who understand that you can't lead without loving and you can't save without serving. We are going to have to find a way to love just a little bit more and to serve just a little bit better. I mean, from every part of our culture, there seems to be something at the core of our decaying civilization, something at the core of our devolving culture that makes it permissible, that makes it okay to attack teachers. I don't quite get that. All I know is, and I tried to point out today, that the line has got to be drawn somewhere. You know, my grandfather said all the time, there's some fights that ain't worth fighting even if you win, but there are other fights that you have to fight even if you lose. This is a fight that we can't afford to lose. So what administrators are doing it for is to make sure that these kids ultimately get the kind of education they deserve.
Our country has moved to a business model in terms of education, and kids aren't widgets. Kids are people, and there are 50 million different ways to educate the 50 million different kids that are coming into school. So it makes me absolutely crazy when we start having conversations about privatizing education and using business models as an effective way to run schools, because they don't take into consideration that every child is different, and that if we're going to educate these babies, we have to look at them as individuals, and privatizing doesn't do that. The accountability people love to point fingers at the educators and say it's your fault because you didn't educate them. I'd like to point the finger back at the people who starved communities of the funding they needed to provide basic child care, health care, and other things to get our kids ready for school. So, and this part sort of frustrates me, so forgive my inner Puerto Rican for coming out on this one. We've allowed non-educators to control the dialogue about what's happening in our schools. While I appreciate a myriad voices involved in the conversation, because we're all in it and we all have to work together if we're going to solve the problems, let's be real about something. You can call me a snob if you want to, but I spent a whole lot of time getting my master's degree in education. I spent a whole lot of time working every day in a classroom. I gave up most of my 20s on my couch grading papers. So I really think I've got a better perspective on what's going on with education than somebody who graduated from an Ivy League school, 4-year degree in business that tries to come in and tell me what's wrong with education.
We're seeing attacks all across the country. It's almost as if a playbook has been distributed, whether it's Wisconsin, Ohio, Michigan, Florida, even here in Puerto Rico, we are seeing unprecedented attacks on teachers and administrators. I think the AFL-CIO's main role is to help mobilize and educate not only union members but people generally about what's happening in our education system. We need to have a free public education system that's quality for students throughout our country, and that's being threatened.
I think that it's time both for teachers, administrators, and students and parents to stand together and say we don't want to push these students out, but we want the supports that are necessary to actually educate them.